Now, hey guys, what's up? What's happening? It's your girl Ebony Jade, aka EJ, and I'm back at it with some nonsense per usual. Now, I'm gonna start because I finally got a little groove and I know what I'm gonna do. This one's for you guys. I got a riddle. I got my little note card, so I'm a little more organized, a little more official. Now, I'm gonna test your might. Let's see what's going. Now, you guys ready? What occurs once in a minute, twice in a moment, and never in 1,000 years? Once in a minute, twice in a moment, and never in 1,000 years. That's the riddle. I'm going to wait, see if you guys have any answers, but keep that at the back of your mind because I want to see how many people get it right. I've been getting great at riddles, so I feel like why not incorporate them? They're so fun. And it shows if your brain works or not. Didn't mean it like that. Okay, guys. So, today, we're talking about making America great. And I know they got a little phrase going on of make America great again or whatever. But if I can be honest, we can't really make something great again if it was never great to begin with. That's just my opinion. I do believe America is a beautiful place. It's the place, it's the land of opportunity. It's supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave. Like, saying them from here should be awesome. Like, it makes me puff out my chest, you know? It should be a great thing. Unfortunately, I do feel as though it's hidden behind a mountain of greed, hate, oppression, and, things that don't really look good. But unfortunately, that is also the truth of the matter. I think part of making America the place that we want it to be, or making the world the place that we want to be, we have to stop and reflect on what things were so we don't fall into the same habits or in the same patterns that they were. So we don't fall into the same patterns, habits, so they don't end up being the same way again. I do believe that knowledge is power, and being able to educate ourselves and learn about past things, and being able to know what a trend is so we're able to identify those patterns when we see them and stop them is a really big thing. Like I said, I think knowledge is power, but if that's the case, then what's applied knowledge, And it only goes to say that, little me, advocate that I am, I believe in better days. And I do believe that better days come with accountability, just like with anything that we do and any step forward that we want to take. We have to sometimes sit back and reflect on the steps that we took in the past to make sure that we don't make those same mistakes, or make sure that we don't go down those same paths that we already have gone down. Or if we do go down those same paths again, that we're able to act and react differently. I need to stop saying. But like I was saying, I do believe it can be a beautiful place. But like I said, we can't make America great again if it was never great to begin with. Back in 1834, there was a English theorist and sociologist. That's what I'm trying to say. English theorist and sociologist. Her name was Harriet Martineau. She came to America and she was writing about how society was in the Western culture. Then when she went back and wrote about it, she said she did like our ideas about democracy and the ideas that we had going on, but we don't practice what we preach. First and foremost, we had an amendment that said all men are created equal, and that was absolutely not true because they had slavery. Women were seen as property. It just wasn't a balance. And that's kind of where it starts, on the premise of building in the wrong direction, in my opinion, because if, like she said, we don't practice what we preach, it's hard to say that we are able to uphold and attain a certain standard that we never really started with. So, what else? These note cards. Now, I'm going to get into a little history lesson, so I want you guys to just be ready for this, because I do believe part of educating I do believe knowledge is power, and educating ourselves is going to be able to help us and build the better future that we're looking for, that personally I'm searching for, and that I'm fighting for, because there is a lot going on in the world today. There's a lot going on with everything. There's a lot going on in the U.S., there's a lot going on in the world, but we got to look at us and start with us. And America, we want to make you great. So in the beginning, we'll start at the beginning, whatever. The early years of the U.S., this is all the way in the early 1400s, before 1492. So early back then, before everything, the colonization that we had going on, there were people in America. The natives were obviously here, and they were, doing what they do with the land, living and being alive. People were studying cultures. People were studying languages of all races and all colors, okay? So we speed up to 1492, and we all know what happened with the Spanish colonization, or whatever it is, Christopher Columbus. And they came over, and, a lot of genocide, a lot of rape, pillaging, murders, what have you. After that, America became ours. That was the first premise of how we started, probably not on the best foot. Stolen land, killing a bunch of people has never really been the best way to go about setting a good example, but hey, it's how it is what happened. And again, these histories, it is fact, so part of being able to go forward with it is accepting what it is and what happened and acknowledging it. And yes, there are animosities and there are tight feelings, and there should be, but we have to be able to express those in a way that is positive, in a way that's going to educate our youth so that they don't repeat the same mistakes and go down the same paths and continue these cycles of hate, of racism, of separation, of discrimination, of putting other people down. Back to what I was saying. So in 1492, colonization began. They came with their slaves in their boats. Free people were able to work as indentured servants after they got taken for their land. Some people still had land, whatever. But after 1619, the transatlantic slave trade came, and that's 250 years later, okay? So 250 years later, we have this big old influx of more slaves. And by that time, we didn't have any more free people. But throughout 200 years, we were able to take these people's lands, take these free people. If they didn't want to give up their land, we were killing them. We were letting them work for us for freedom, but never really letting them attain that freedom and what have you. So after the transatlantic slave trade comes, they have a big influx of slave, and everything starts. The colonies, they're getting bigger, and we just have more structures to build, more structures, more to grow. That's kind of when it started. The base of America, building the backs on people that we weren't going to acknowledge, but still taking credit for the hard work put forth. That's another way we kind of started putting our not right foot forward. So we have a whole bunch of slavery, a whole bunch of hatred, a whole bunch of people getting oppressed, beat, hung, what have you, working for others, being seen less than tools. And I'm not just talking about black people. There were Hispanic people. America was part of Mexico. Like, we took that from them too. So don't get it twisted. I'm not just talking about black people. This is about society as a whole. Okay, the Asian people weren't treated right either. We had all these people. They were indentured servants. They did have the privilege of being able to work, but they were able to come into slavery and work as indentured servants and be able to gain freedom. Although they didn't have the same actual rights as white people, they didn't have as little rights as black people or dark people, whatever. So we have all that slavery and hatred going on from 1619 to 1865. Okay, we're getting a little closer to where we are today. 1865, that is, 1492 to 1619 is 130 years. My bad. So then we got 1619, 1865. 250 years later, right? Slavery finally ended because of the passing of the 13th Amendment. And like, I'm not pretty sure, I have it. The 13th Amendment was that nobody could own slaves or have anybody as a slave or something. I have it on some card somewhere. But pretty much, we couldn't have slavery in America or in any country or in any territory that was owned. I found it. Neither neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment, shall exist within the U.S. or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So that's saying that we are no longer able to have slavery. That's 1865. That's also a similar time. Women, what? I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, whatever. Slavery ended. Doesn't mean discrimination and hate ended, unfortunately. I wish it did. I wish it happened like that, right? But that's not really the way the world works. So by 1870, we have our discriminatory laws. We have our Jim Crow's laws. We have our segregation, very widespread in the U.S. There is no inclusion. There are Hispanic people and Asian people with brighter skin, so they get the white cloak. It's called a white cloak status. And like, you can look all this stuff up. I'm not making it up. And they were deemed white, but they didn't get the same privileges as white people. They were still discriminated against, what have you, because they weren't white. They weren't European, the last culture that came to America, So we have the discriminatory laws in 1870s all the way to 1965. Now we're getting a little closer to our time. 1965. That was 60 years ago, guys. Like, Jim Crow laws, segregation, racial injustice, technically, formally ended 60 years ago. Now let's take a break and look back at all the time that all the racism, oppression, and all that happened. That was like 450 years. So we have indoctrined 450 years of hate, of oppression, of discrimination, of not seeing people as actual people. And then we're up to the 1960s, and here we are getting all together. Everybody's bound together, We're all trying to make it work. Well, yeah, but we have the discriminatory laws. So there's still a separation because nobody wants a slave with them. Nobody wants the lower class people with them. And unfortunately, there was no way there was. People were getting free. They were able to work themselves to their freedom, to their property, whatever. But it wasn't as though they were able to start chasing the American dream. I guess you could say the American dream wasn't really attainable. It was a little bit harder because owning property was harder. Although slavery was over, people were still trying to work for their freedom, but it was like unfair economics, everything that wasn't probably beneficial, but it happened. So there we have that 60 years ago, segregation, and it's really crazy to think about because we look at the world today and we look at how people are and how people behave, and people are like, I don't know why people are still so racist. And it's kind of hard not to see why, because it was a thing for 450 years. This coming together as a nation was just a thing like 60 years ago, guys. It's still kind of fresh. Like, we're the baby country, but it's still kind of a fresh concept to us. Not so much anymore, but a little bit. But I was fortunate in the way I grew up because I was born in 95, and women just got rights and all that stuff too. So segregation, women rights, all that stuff happened. So I was born in 95, and I was pretty fortunate with the way I was raised. I was raised in a predominantly white neighborhood, town, whatever, but I was never faced with those racial complications that people may have been faced with. I was never that little black girl. There was only a couple of us in the school, but it was never just like a thing. It was never a thing. When I was growing up, I feel as though the American dream was something that was really evident. It might have been a little more attainable. And I don't know, I was a little kid. This is just what I'm perceiving from my little mind. And things were happy. I see people coming. I see people working. I see people building their lives and building their futures. And, it was getting nice. Yeah, my childhood was great. I'm not gonna lie. I had a great childhood. I didn't have to worry about anything like that. And it's crazy to think because I used to talk about my grandma and she was from those times. My grandma she's old. Like she was alive when Jim Crow laws happened. She did walk with Martin Luther King Jr. Like that lady picked cotton, not as a slave, but that's what they did to make money. And it's crazy to think about because that's my grandma. Like she did those things. And when you understand how close that stuff was in relativity to, I don't know, how long it was been going on, it's crazy to think about. This stuff was not so long ago. So the country has progressed a lot. It's regressed a lot, but it's coming along. And I want us to help it come along a little better. So I'm growing up, everything happens. I was young, then 9/11 happens, and then here we go with a whole bunch of hate again. I feel like we came together as a country, but anything that was foreign or not like us was the enemy. People were coming out and shooting people at gas stations just because they had wraps on their head, and that's crazy, but it was acceptable. It wasn't acceptable, but it wasn't as frowned upon because those people just blew us up. And that is okay, so here's America back. And yeah, we're trying to defend ourselves, but through that, it breeded a lot more hate. And I know I couldn't really see what was going on in the real world politically after 9/11 because I was in middle school growing up and I was probably stuck in my little teenage world. But things were good for me still. Like I said, I grew up in a great place. Batavia was a great place to grow up in. I didn't face any of that. I did have friends when I was growing up, and they'd be like, oh, well, my parents or my grandparents are racist or whatever. But, it was never a thing. Those grandparents never ended up saying anything. Those people loved me. So I think I was very fortunate in the time that I grew up, and maybe it's because things were so simple, because, we were still knocking on doors. Technology wasn't so widespread. There wasn't such a constant fuel of negativity and hate going on. And that probably had a lot to do with it because now there's been a bloom of technology. We can see everything that's going on everywhere, all the good, all the bad. Unfortunately, it's more so bad than good. And, it feeds into the negative. It feeds more into that hate. It feeds the fuel to the fire of separation, of hate, and I'm better than you and you're better than them. And that's not the narrative that I wanted to, continue to feed in. I always feel as though, I don't know. Yes, it happened, and yes, it was a thing, but like I said, I have always been the person that I'm going to be an advocate for what's good because I hadn't been faced with those kind of things. I feel as though I was blessed because I get to be that bridge for at least for people in my age or my generation or whatever that might have gone through that and kind of communicate how things were different. I was people's first black people, and it's crazy to say it like that, but I was, and it just was the case, but they loved me and didn't think of me any different. And now I feel as though, okay, we fast forward to what the world is now, and I do feel as though we've regressed. We've regressed a lot more than where we were before. From where we were before when I was younger to where we are when I became a young adult was just it was saddening. And I don't know if it's because I changed areas and the demographic and how things were differently and how people were differently, or just because of the fact that was just how the real world was. And I was a child and I didn't know what I was seeing, and I didn't know because I was still young and naive, and I thought things were as they weren't because I didn't get to see everything. I wasn't exposed to the real world at that point. But then I also wonder, what happened to America? What is it? At one point we wanted to be the superpower of the world. I remember in social studies in freshman year, I wrote a paper about it. And for us to want to be the superpower of the world, for us to want to be a pillar, a something that someone could look up to, a leader, how is it that from the beginning we were never really, like Harriet Martineau said, we never really practiced what we preached? We grew our nation on falsities and great ideas, but those ideas never really got to come to fruition. They have been progressing. Yes, we've gotten a lot more. I'm not going to say that everybody has gotten a lot more liberties. Women, black people, Mexican people, although maybe not Mexican people right now because we're trying to like take all their stuff. But that's just what I'm saying. It's like history is repeating itself again. And my question is, like, what do you guys think about all this stuff that's going on? Like, what do you think about the things that you see in the world? I won't even say the world because that's a really big picture. What do you guys think about the things that you see in our nation? About the things that you might see in your towns, in your states, in your neighborhoods? What do you think about when you see things that are not so great? When do you think it would be a time to act? And I don't mean act like jump in like Superman, but I feel like when I say act, it's like how long do you sit back and watch all this negative stuff and keep feeding into it until we sit back and reflect on ourselves and really just see where we stand in all of it? Just take a break because it's not really about everything that is going on. I mean, it is, but in my opinion, it's like the little builds to the whole. So all our little components are what makes this machine go, okay? And when we are consumed with negativity and hate and just allowing bad things to happen, or maybe not so good things, or things that aren't going to have us set the example that we're trying to accept, how long is it before we sit back and wonder where we play a part in that? So what I'm asking is, like, when do you reflect and see, okay, I see all this stuff going on? Because this is the advocate in me speaking. You guys know I'm so activist. I want the world to be together. I want us to all be happy because I do think it's possible. I think the world that we live in could be a beautiful place. America was meant to be a beautiful place. The world was meant to be a beautiful place. But I do believe it just starts with one. One person can make a change. And it's not one person, but one person getting the idea with like-minded people and coming together. And that's why I say, when are you going to stop and reflect and kind of look at the situations and the role that you play? Do you care about what's going on? Do you want to be a part of what's going on for the good or the bad? If you don't care, are you willing to just sit back and let the people that do care try to make good happen? Or do you want to just feed into the fire? My thing is, you don't have to care about what's going on in the world at all. I think the world would be a beautiful place if people just stayed to themselves and minded their own business, really. If people were only focused on themselves and their goals and what they wanted to do, and they only had their shooting for the stars on their mind, they wouldn't be so worried about everybody else. They wouldn't have time to be concerned with anybody else because all they're doing is focusing and feeding on a goal and focusing and feeding on something that they want to attain and shoot for. And I think we're just so consumed with everybody else. If we just stopped and worried about ourselves, that would just be the beginning of so much change there. Stop dipping our fingers in other people's plates. Stop drinking other people's bottles of water. Just really taking ourselves aside and just being individuals. If you want to be a part of the whole, if you want to be a part of feeding into the good in society, then great, fine. But that's not for everybody. Like, when I was talking to my mom about it, she's like, Ebony, I don't want to fight anymore. I've fought my whole life. I've raised kids. I've had my life. I've done my things. I don't want to fight. And I get that because fighting isn't for everybody. It's not. But I asked her, if you don't want to fight, are you willing to step aside so the people that do want to fight can step up and do what needs to be done in order to make the change that they want to see? Are you willing to just sit back, relax, and let me make the world a better place? She's like, yeah. I was like, exactly. Like, I don't care if you don't want to fight. What I care about is you implicating the beauty that I want to make, the beauty and the change that I want to make. If you don't want to fight, fine. Sit back and worry about yourself. Please, I would love that. Chase your own goals, because if that's the case, you're not going to be worried about everybody else. You're not going to be concerned about who's doing what to who, because you're going to be worried about you. And if more people could do that, things would be good. And if the people that cared, you stuck worrying about other people to those people, I think things would be okay. And then all you have to deal with is the haters and the negative, and the naysayers and the boo-boo babies, you know? You just got to worry about those stinky pots and go from there. But at the end of the day, one light, if you're in a dark cave and you find a light, there is hope or whatever. There's always opportunity. There's always, I don't know, there's a chance. You know, if you're willing to put in the fight and you're willing to, or you're willing to step away, you're willing to focus on yourself, as long as you're not feeding into the BS, then I think that changes really could happen. Things could be made great. And I'm not saying, guys, like, jump into action. I'm saying when you see something going on and it makes you wonder, like, dang, do I believe in this? Am I a part of this? Do I want to be a part of this? Like, oh, this is my real world. Just, like, reflect on you. Reflect on you if you were in that situation. Reflect on you and where you stand in your world. Are you too busy worrying about other people and ruining people's days? Or are you at home chasing your own dreams? Are you worried about people in the right way in which you want to benefit their lives and make a positive impact? Or are you walking around, I'm sorry, but shitting in everybody's bed? You know, nobody, sorry, but nobody likes that. And that's what I'm trying to say. With everything going on in the world right now, when is the time that you guys step back and reflect on you and reflect on where you stand and reflect on where you want the future to be, if you even care where the future is going to be? Because like I said, everybody is not going to feel the way I feel. Everybody's not going to be an activist. Everybody doesn't care, but I do. And I want to know what you guys think. If there's things that, what do you guys think that we could do as a society to kind of really usher in a new era of acceptance and usher in a new era of America really being the land of opportunity that it was meant to be? Or do you think that maybe that's not who the country wants to be anymore? Like, it's a lot to think about, and I'd like to know what you guys think, because I think that there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of future that we have. There's a lot of things that could and couldn't happen. But there's also a lot that resonates with us. I know there's people of various races, of various cultures that live in different places, that have different ideas, different educations. And I just want to know what kind of experiences you guys have gone through in your lives and where you think those experiences have led you and will lead you, and what ideas, if any at all, do you think it's a good idea? What kind of change do you think would be made if people just worried about themselves? What kind of difference do you think we could make if people just stop sticking their nose in other people's business? Like, simple. What kind of change do you think could be made if people just stepped aside and let good happen? I don't know. I want to know what you guys think. I also want to know if anybody got the answer to my riddle. I'm going to say it again. So what happens once in a minute, twice in a moment, and never in 1,000 years. Did you guys get that? That's the riddle. And lastly, I just want to end it on a good note, a positive note, like the riddle. It's going to be a little would you rather. I thank you guys for joining me, of course, and I'm going to post the questions with the uploaded live later. And I really want your comments. I really want to know what you guys think and how you feel. And if you do want to make a change, if there are people that want to make a change, if you guys think that people should just sit down and shut up more, if you think that it'd be a good idea to just dive more into yourself, I want to know what you guys think, because I think learning other people's perspectives and other people's ideas is a very good way to know how to come closer together. And learning each other's ideas doesn't mean that we have to agree and that we all have to have the same ideas and have the same outlook. It just means that we're learning a little more about each other, so we're able to maybe accept what we can't change what we can, and just coexist in a beautiful way. There's no reason why there should be so much malice and hate in this world. There's no reason why everybody should be just pooping on everybody and raining on everybody's parade. There's no reason why we can't really come together. Because if we learn what happened in the past and we learned what's going on now, and we are able to identify what's going on, we're probably able to make a change in the future so we can stop those patterns from happening again. Now I'm going to end with the would you rather. And I'd really like to know what you guys think. It's kind of gross, but it's funny. So, would you rather drink a shot of trash juice, like the stuff, like if we poked a hole in a trash bag and it dropped down a cup, take a shot of that, or take a shot of that sink stuff at the bottom of the sink after you do a whole sink full of dirty dishes? Trash juice, drink juice, sink juice. Would you rather? Guys, thank you for joining me. I'm going to upload it later. I want to make America great to begin with. Help me. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you leave me with your comments and what you think, because your ideas really mean a lot. And I'd love to be able to have a part 2 and kind of discuss everything that you guys thought and your input and your ideas, and really share everybody with everybody so we have a common knowledge of really what's going on through everybody's head. I appreciate you guys for stopping in. Thank you for joining me, per usual. And I'll check you later. Guys, have a great day. Stay blessed. Be awesome. Lead with grace and live a life of gratitude. I love ya. I wouldn't have a show without you guys. And I'll see you next week. Or 2 weeks. I'll see you soon. Bye.